Good afternoon, Sage Freak Bobcats. Welcome to SagePOL, your destination for rational commentary on relevant news. My name is Darius Rahmanian.
I'm Jake Nipper.
Your hosts for today's episode of SagePOL. SagePOL is intended to act as a fair platform for discussing political, economic, and social issues through a lens of logic and respect.
So today we have guest star on today, Isabelle Herbert. You want to say hi?
Hi, thank you for having me.
And she's chosen our topic today, as is custom. So today, what are we going to be talking about today?
We are going to be talking about high school culture and what goes on in high school.
So like sort of hype culture.
Hype culture.
I guess popular culture and trend setting in our age group, sort of?
Yes.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I think to start off, each one of us should just give our own little definition of what teenage culture means to us in this modern day and age because, in the past, there's been definable generations where, like Woodstock, all these events in the 90s, like consumerism culture have all defined separate generations. So I think it's important for us to define for our generation, since we're supposed to be one of the most important generations in the world right now, to define what's really been going on the past 18 years of our lives that has really begun defining our characteristics.
I think one of the biggest things is the fact that we grew up using technology, and I know that sounds cliche, but just bear with me here. We are the first generation where using a computer is sort of second nature, and it's just been a part of our lives ever since our existence. No other generation has grown up with such ease of access to a multitude of technology and information. The biggest, I think, difference between us and the other generations is the fact that we have any multitude of information at our fingertips, and we can learn and access sort of any information we want. And that is a very double-edged sword because people tend to abuse that with I don't want to use the term fake news, but there's a lot of, rumors and things that are spread around on social media that aren't true. Nobody fact checks anymore, and misinformation is really potent. So I think information is kind of what defines our generation. That and memes, which
I
is
agree. God
Yeah,
love memes.
memes are, before we get too off topic here, to me especially, resident meme expert, memes essentially are a unit of culture. Memes, by definition, from the original definition, are anything this postcard right in front of me. As long as it's replicable inside the human psyche, then it's a meme. And to us, they provide a more of a sense of community and understanding of popular topics and news.
right. And it's sort of like a communal inside joke almost.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's World War III is right around the corner joke example, and suddenly you see on Instagram, Reddit, Snapchat, Twitter,
When you
all
join
these
the when you join the Marine Corps to buy a Camaro, and then they say you go into war.
Yeah, it's and when we say these things, even when verbally explaining them, it brings an image into our head. It replicates and it creates kind of like this is what defines us.
Right.
Yeah, it's a mutual understanding, I think.
What do you think is one of the defining characteristics of Generation Z that you see?
I think this idea that we're always being watched and everything we do is always tracked. I mean, you look like Instagram, Snapchat, this like constant need to have to document what you do. Everyone sees you. You see what everyone else is doing. There's not a whole lot of downtime where you're not trying to almost like conform to society.
And privacy is almost an oxymoron at this point.
Yeah.
I think that's really interesting in the fact that privacy used to be much more accessible, and now you never know when you're being watched, I guess. And granted, most people don't have much to hide, but at the same time, it's a different way of living. And with the whole Mark Zuckerberg Facebook scandal and all that fun stuff,
Marcus Zuckercorn.
the Zuck. I think that's also really applicable. It's another one of those facets of the double-edged sword of the information age.
I mean, we are the most watched generation in terms of like our parents always watching us.
That's right.
You go anywhere, we're always surveyed. There's cameras everywhere.
Yeah.
Facebook uses you and all of your information as just a data mining platform, and you are essentially the product, not the consumer.
Yeah.
I think that's really interesting.
That's a good way of putting it, I believe.
Yeah. I mean, your information is what they sell. That's how they make money.
Yeah. All the ads.
You're just a number.
Ads.
Yeah. I mean, like, what's Marcus Zuckercorn gonna do? What's he gonna do? Like, honestly, to me, I've always known. I've been watched. My dad has always told me, Darius, you're always being watched. I'm like, it's about like a matter of being safe. Like, we always preach internet safety. That's like a school, like a little jig at school, like, internet safety, right? As long as you're watching what you say and who your audience is, you should be fine. What is Facebook going to do? Steal like your family photos, right? It's data itself is just a number, and if you're just another number, you're not really significant. 2012 is when they shut down the NSA support, right, Jake? I'm pretty sure 2012 is when they shut down the NSA surveillance, like overt surveillance
Oh,
of Americans.
they it's like in that ballpark of years, give or
Yeah.
take a year or two, when the like with the whole Snowden epidemic, if I'm recalling correctly, there were laws passed that limited the scope of data hoarding. The NSA used to essentially just save every single phone call that ever existed on U.S. soil, and now after Snowden did his leak as to the practices going on inside the NSA's headquarters, or in the CIA, which branch did he work for? I can't remember.
Snowden,
he's
he was
the
CIA. He
Yeah,
was CIA.
that's right.
Yeah.
So CIA, NSA, I mean, they're very they're not mutually exclusive.
Yeah.
After the Snowden leak, I feel like I don't feel like if I remember correctly, the amount of data hoarding was severely regulated by the government because they realized that hoarding every single phone call ever without probable cause is by definition unconstitutional. So
Yeah.
that was sort of, I feel like that's the wake up call for our generation. That's when we realized what we say on technology is never private.
Yeah.
Everything is on a server somewhere, and that can be accessed by a multitude of people.
And it's affecting people who are getting jobs. I mean, a while ago they had that story where the guy who got accepted into Harvard, he got his application revoked because he had some anti-Semitic meme account with his friends, and they totally just revoked his application.
Which is kind of sad, and that's part of the reason why I don't screw with social media. Like the only platform I'm on is Snapchat, and it's hard to get
nothing
screwed
gets
over on
saved.
that.
Yeah.
So
Unless people leak your
memories.
screenshot your stuff, and so
Yeah.
you know, so you know who
All the
you know
little
who's.
vaults, all the
yeah.
little...
I think my definition when it comes to teenage society is, I think here in California, especially, we are prescribed to our own definition, and everywhere else in the world is prescribed to their own definition.
that's a good point.
And
Localized culture plays
Yep.
a big part, and when I moved out here, I definitely noticed that from Tennessee to
Yeah.
California, there's a huge difference.
Because when you're in California, it's an urban sprawl. California is essentially one urban sprawl separated by a field, and then another urban sprawl,
Yeah.
interspersed by trees, of course. And so,
And the extreme utter wealth in our
yeah,
society
Yes.
it's
makes
true.
us
We
very
are
different.
a very rich state, even though we have a lot of poor people. We are also a very, rich state, and
Which
I think
also points to the class divide, but that's another topic.
yeah, that's another topic completely. But when we come to Carlsbad, let's look at it from our school's perspective.
Okay.
We have students here, and what's one thing about Carlsbad that I've noticed is that it is a very boring town.
Yes,
People could beg to differ, but we are in our own little bubble. Time seemingly resets here. It's always sunny. It's either cloudy, it's either cloudy and raining, or sometimes even on occasion sunny and a little bit of rain.
Very temperate climate. Everything around here is nice. Like in Carlsbad,
very mellow.
There's not really a seedy part of Carlsbad. I think
Closest thing to the seedy part, I'd say, is like when you're in the village,
in the
and
village,
then you're
and the
going
little
past.
outside,
Yeah.
or like the area with Denny's. That's about
But
it.
if you were to travel around, you'd realize that's really not even...
It's not even remotely seedy compared to the rest of, some of the places, even in San Diego County.
And even Sage Creek, we have probably one of the mellowest schools.
When it comes,
We're really isolated.
in terms of...
And I think that helps to shape our teen culture.
I agree.
yeah. So when it comes down to it, essentially, even when you come to Oceanside, you look at the Oceanside, they have 90, they have like 60 more thousand population than we do.
I believe so.
Yeah, so in Carlsbad, we're dead center in the smack dab. What is this? This isn't Aviara, is it? This is
This is closer to Oceanside, actually.
yeah. So we're close to Oceanside,
Yeah.
right? But where the school is, we're situated in a gigantic suburban neighborhood, pulling in tons of students, and this is not generally even. It's a wealthy neighborhood. There's some very nice houses around this area.
You look at Bressie Ranch.
Yeah, look at Bressie Ranch. It's like, so
the epitome of
who are the teenagers? Yeah, who are the
white
teenagers?
picket fence
Yep.
perfection.
Yep.
Yeah,
And I think that really, really goes to shape our school's culture. I noticed when I moved here that the people around here, I'm not going to say everybody's more shallow, but people don't really have to worry about or talk about a lot of the issues that other people face. Like some people, I knew plenty of people back where I come from that didn't have enough to eat every day.
This is a spoiled school.
And
we're spoiled children.
Everybody here, it's like, Daddy did not buy me the 2017 BMW
Right?
328i that I wanted. I got the hand-me-down 2014.
Yeah, everyone's driving around in
Everyone's-
their, Beamers.
And it's like everybody
their
gets
first
hand-me-down
cars.
luxury cars, and that
And they're complaining.
and it sets a really dangerous precedent in psychologically in the minds of these students that I expect to get the latest and greatest or a luxury brand car or this, that, and the other for free without doing anything. And that is part of Carlsbadian teenage culture.
Exactly.
In a lot of families, granted, there's always the exception, but with a lot of students, they're raised to just sort of expect to be handed things. And when they get to college,
it's going to be a big wake-up call.
Either that or their parents will continue to just give them whatever they want. But someday they're gonna their parents' patience is going to run thin, and they're not going to be given everything that they want. And I think we're just doing a disservice as a society to our kids in that we raise them, we are complacent, and we raise them, speaking like from the parents' perspective, to be entitled. And that's very dangerous.
And I think when it comes to complacency, I think that's a big part of suburban modern culture, especially for teenagers. Complacency is a very big issue. Even when looking at recent even looking at recent events and sparks within teenage culture, I was in a school shooting in 2000. What was it? 2010.
Oh, elementary school.
At Kelly. There was no gigantic teenage movement from there. And I think this is attributed to the fact what Jake said before: the rise of technology and the interconnected things we have as a society. Because in 2010,
tragedies spread quickly.
Yeah, the iPhone 3G was like the only smartphone you had, and the spread of social media had not garnered to what we have today. So now, when something does happen, it's easier for the media to capitalize on the young hearts of teenagers who want to help. They want to help. They see all these things in the world. They want to help, but they capitalize and they misdirect teenagers just to make a profit.
Regardless of whether or not school shootings are an actual statistically significant threat to your life, now, if you're a teenager, it's on your mind. Like, that's the way the media has spun it. And, like, I feel safe at school. I don't think I'm going to get shot at. But a lot of students do.
And the teachers.
Yeah, and a lot of teachers do. I mean, Mr. Keys, I've talked to him. He thinks it's a serious threat. And maybe he's right. Maybe he's wrong. I mean, we talked about this last episode. You know my opinion on this. But regardless, that is part of our generation now. Yeah. And growing up with the fear of school shootings, growing up with all this technology and this information, and at least in the Carlsbadian bubble, entitlement. And I think that shapes a lot of the things that we do. Like, I don't really party. I'm not that kind of guy. Maybe I'm not cool enough to party. But I definitely see, like, when it comes to the, like, essence of parties, it's like some people will go party in houses that are, like, up for sale on, like, they haven't been sold yet. They're, like, waiting to be sold on, like, they're free real estate. They're not free real estate, but they're not open. They're not taking real estate. Yeah. They'll go on and party in unoccupied houses and then just trash them. And that just it's terrible, and I feel like that plays into the entitlement thing. It's like, oh, somebody else will deal with it. Somebody else will clean it up.
Well, and this is a very overprotected generation too. I mean, our kids get no time to even be by themselves. So we are, like, taught, I mean, you go to the playground, like, your parent is sitting right there, like, you never have any time for yourself or to think through your own mistakes. So I could definitely see, like, if you go to this empty house and you trash it and you just think, well, my parents always, like, I've never had to make a mistake and then deal with the repercussions. So they just
same thing with drunk driving. I mean, think of the every 15 minutes program. It's like when you shelter kids and you don't let them learn from their smaller mistakes earlier on, they're much more bound to make big mistakes because they don't have that cognitive development of, wait a minute, this might be not such a good idea. Yeah. They don't have that experience.
And I think a big part of it is also the high school, not like teenager, but high school culture when it comes to the high pressure of high grades. People have always talked about the anxiety, cheating. So when teenagers are given the opportunity to release this stress in any way, shape, or form they can, they'll find outlets. And this is not just a Carlsbad problem. This is a teenage problem.
This is a ubiquitous problem.
It's just hormones and all that garbage. It's we as teenagers, we're growing. And we need to express our rage and our feelings in some way. And partying for a lot of people, dulling the senses and just going all out and, like, relaxing, or they like to call it. It really helps them vent, a lot of rage. It's not the most moral thing, but you can see where people are coming from. They don't want to.
That's nothing new. I mean, that's been the way American culture has operated for a long time. But I think you just mentioned, like, academic dishonesty and cheating. Yeah. And that really, really strikes.
At our school, we are known as the cheater school.
Yeah. I mean, you think about the AP Lang scandal, like, what, 1 or 2 years ago?
AP Euro, which was a joke with all the Quizlets and all the people who had already done the class giving the tests. We had people steal the final out of the printer.
Yep.
And I know, like, in my period, we had a lot of cheaters, and we started off the year taking all just multiple choice tests, and the cheating was so bad at the end of the year that we ended up doing essays with everyone had a different topic because the
That's
cheating
the
was
only
so
way.
out of control.
Then there was the pre-calc honors fiasco where a student like flat out just like took a picture and sent out the
everyone takes
test.
the pictures.
And now Miss Turner, whenever I'm in elementary calculus, CP math, whenever I'm in there, it feels like a lot tighter when you're doing things. So like, and she seems to get like a little bit more angry when like when a student's not listening to like. Put away your phone. It's
so we know
important.
it's happening.
We know it's happening, but we don't address it.
What is the cause is my question. I think I have a theory, but I'd like to hear what you guys have to say about this.
I would say I feel like the cheating really starts, especially at Sage Creek. Not saying that other schools don't have very competitive environments, but we are a school where kids here get, in terms of compared to other schools, we get good grades and we get good test scores, and we come from wealthier families, more. It's just a competitive environment. And so I feel like the cheating comes because everyone is trying to get the best grades, going to get into the best college. And you're basically, so people do whatever it takes. And when you're stressed and somebody gives you the easier option of cheating versus staying up all night again, the person will always choose cheating.
Yeah, because it's a culture of trying to one-up each other. That's just consumers' culture in a nutshell.
When it comes to the just sheer volume of students these days and how our population is growing and the amount of college students there are these days and the overcrowding of like all name brand colleges, that's, I think, the biggest factor. And I think we've all touched on that a little bit in our responses here. When you give this expectation to your child of you need to go to a great school or you're essentially a failure.
Yeah.
Oh, I hate that so much.
I know, they'll do anything to get into a good school.
Especially in the gentrified area like Carlsbad. It's if you come from a wealthy family, you're expected to get great grades and go to a great school, or else you're a failure. And so people, and I think this is great marketing in the like college department, where these colleges are really good at selling their image to you. Where you think you have to go to Hopkins or Stanford or Yale, Harvard, Cornell, or else you're not good enough.
It's society's merit based. It's society's not based off of your bachelor's degree in psychology you got from Princeton. It's based off of, can you go in, do your job every single day, do it well. One of my friends told me.
I think that's amazing.
Yeah, I think
the way you just said that, it does not matter about your psychology bachelor's from Princeton.
My friend told me, and this, I think this is more applicable to the STEM fields, but I mean, I've been working for 2 years, and I've seen, I'm a blue collar schlub. That's the way I like to put it. I'm a blue collar schlub, but I've seen a lot of people at my work who I have such great respect for because they come in every day.
Yep, do their best.
They do their job. They go home and they're trying to make a living for themselves. And I come back to school and there's just a dissonance in the culture here.
There's a very
people
big
don't
disconnect.
have respect. They don't have respect for the system. I don't like the system, but that's for different reasons.
And
I come to school.
The lack of respect for blue collar workers is very disgusting. Like I'm actually appalled with the way people treat blue collar workers, especially around here. Like I don't take too much offense for like when customers treat me badly. I work at Taco Bell, so whenever someone like is rude to me at the drive-thru, I don't really care because like I've got better things to worry about.
Yeah.
But when I'm like a customer somewhere else and I see someone just like start yelling at a cashier for no reason, it's like, what are you doing?
That makes me so mad. At work,
why?
Yeah.
Didn't you go did you not go through the process yourself as a younger person?
They didn't. And so when you live here where people don't even have jobs or
like,
they just
a lot of people
don't
are
know.
like trust fund babies and like they never actually learn they
be a
never
normal human.
They never learn like the value of a dollar and like hard work and how hard it really is to make it like you're on your own way with like limited education. And a lot of these people just don't realize, like I'm not going to name names, but I've got this one friend who his parents bought him a BMW. His parents just give him like paychecks every week because he like lives alone, and his parents are like somewhere else, and he just lives in his own giant house by himself with his BMW, and he just goes around, he gets all his gas and insurance paid for, and he like just like makes everybody else's lives inconvenient for his own pleasure. He like he'll go and give like restaurant workers a hard time, or he'll go like trash a Walmart, and it's like, what are you doing?
Yeah, and I mean it's hard too because no sob story here, like I definitely am lucky to come from the family I come from, but I also see there's something between like when you work a lot and you see somebody who doesn't have to work and they're disrespectful to somebody who does. It's just a lack of empathy, which we already have. That's another problem in our culture, is nobody knows how to be considered anymore.
It's every man for himself. And it's
Yeah.
really sad. And that's part of the competitive nature of school, as well as just the competitive nature of life in general in our society.
But there's a degree to which you should be competitive. There's a degree which you should not crap on your fellow American or your fellow, just human being. You should not go to Taco Bell and crap on the 14-year-old or 15-year-old, wrong age, 16 or 17-year-old working.
Yeah.
There's no reason to do that.
Well, that's
People
not even
do it.
competitive. That's just ignorance and lack of empathy.
Well, they need to show that
Isabelle
they're
said.
better than you. Like, you roll up in their new Lexus, and they're like, I want a chalupa, and you give them, like, a burrito, right?
And they yell at you for, like, 30
It's
minutes.
like, I'm sorry, dude, I'll get you another one.
When
It doesn't
9
really
times out of
matter.
10, if a construction worker gets the wrong order, they'll just be like, hey, man, I think you gave me the wrong food.
Yeah, 'cause
and then
you
you're like,
respect.
okay, sorry about that. Let me just get them to make you the right food. And then, like, nothing has to come of it. But, I get way more rich customers give us a much harder time for no reason than blue-collar workers.
Well,
I'm not saying, like, oh, blue-collar workers are to be worshipped. But, like, people...
Just treat them with respect.
Humility is really important to being a well-adjusted individual, and a lot of people around here lack it.
I agree.
And that's part of our teen culture. It's that
We're entitled. We're
entitled and
to
we lack
these
humility.
things,
And you walk around and you listen to people talk about college acceptances, and I know
God,
a couple of a lot of my friends got into UCSD, which has a 35% acceptance rate. That's amazing. UCSD is an amazing school, and it's very competitive. And yet, when one of my best friends gets into UCSD, another friend starts mocking them. Oh, you have to settle for UCSD? I'm so sorry. What are you talking about?
I don't know.
Settling for UCSD?
Well, wait,
What are you settling for?
Well, it's a
Yeah.
UC. These are the only reason why I'm saying in California. I've said this a lot because people like to ask me, "Oh, where you're going to college, Darius?"
Yeah.
The only reason I'm still in this godforsaken state is for the education,
Yep.
the environment, and most of all, just some of my family lives here. But other than that, I would move. I would move to hell, even Indiana. I swear to God, because people in Indiana, at least they're nice. Okay,
Yep. Yeah.
At least you can have a good, honest, blue collar American family, be treated the same amount of respect as that one guy from the corporation office. Because there, it's a different culture. I mean, hell, the United States isn't West and East Coast. It's West, East, right? I don't know if you didn't see, I made a motion with my hand. Sorry, but
Basically,
good podcasting.
there's a really big gap in between the West and East Coast, in case you just don't understand geography. That's what he's trying to say. And there's lots of different subcultures when you go from West to East, everything in between. The Midwest is very different, Southwest is very different, that kind of thing. I come from the South, and people out there are, neighbors, the sense of community between neighbors is it's a thing that exists out there.
Here
And
you walk
over
out
here,
and Jerry from across the street's he looks at you with a squint in his eye.
Yeah.
And, he's walking his little terrier.
You're I've lived here for 10 years.
It's dude, leave me
Yeah.
alone. I'm trying to get my mail, dog.
Meanwhile, I'll walk outside in my old neighborhood in Tennessee, and I'll see my neighbor from across the street. I wave at him, he waves back, and we smile, and we go on with our days. I mow my lawn. I see someone else mowing their lawn. We wave back to each other. I forget to put, our family forgets to take our trash cans in. My next door neighbor will take them in for me, and we'll do that for him, because that's just what you do. I mean, it's really astounding to me how different it is out here, where everybody's just so
quiet,
uptight and in their own business, and it's like, why? There's no community
It's funny,
anymore.
actually, because I've always lived in Carlsbad, but I just recently, well, not super recently, but a few years ago, I moved into Hanover, and it was really interesting because it's the first time I've ever had neighbors that actually were nice to you.
Really?
And waved at you and
give you a smile when you're walking
give you
across.
a smile. It's not one of those I feel like when I come into school, a lot of the Noonji is super nice, but there's one I always wave at her and she just never waves back.
Yeah,
and you always just have to be just wave back at me. I just want to
Everybody's
be
just
nice.
so depressed and in their own head. But I think we've kind of beat these topics to death. Why don't we move on to say drugs?
Okay.
Drugs. I think. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Don't even.
This is a
get me
big
started.
topic. So
I'll go Rodrigo
Okay.
Duterte on you guys. I swear.
I wanted to talking about how it's so competitive. Have you guys watched the Take Your Pills documentary yet?
no, I have not.
Do it. It's so good.
I have not. I don't have time to watch things.
It's on Netflix, and I normally don't love this kind of stuff, but it was really well done, and it was all about Adderall abuse in high school and college students. And it was really eye-opening to me because they went into like a theory on why everyone is so sad and taking drugs. And they were saying like this need to be the best in such a competitive culture. People want to, Adderall appeals to them because you think, all right,
it makes it easier to...
here's me and here's this other guy, and whoever can work the most and make the company the most money is going to get the job. And you just think, well, if I make more money, I'll have a happier life. That's why people take Adderall to be more competitive. And it has all these bad health effects, but you're just taking these drugs to be a better, like, human capital so you can work more and make more money for other people. Like, it doesn't matter how you feel.
When you look at it that way, when you're destroying your body just to be, like, a better slave to the man, that's really depressing.
That's like, honestly, 1984 levels of stuff going on. And I think what definitely drives the modern day drug culture, past from, like, the old, 1980s to, like, early 2000s, was definitely a kind of war on drugs mentality. Modern day consumers culture really drives me. Have you seen Gucci Gang? Like,
oh, I know. Or like Supreme.
Sounds like a very dumb way. Sounds like a very dumb example to bring in. But let's look at it.
The fact that
they I walk around school and people unironically listen to Lil Pump, even though it's like the most. I think
who the heck is Lil Pump? It's Lil Pump. Get it right, big boy.
I don't care. It's they glorify the use of drugs. They glorify the use of lean.
That's nothing new, but I think what qualifies our version of like glorifying drugs compared to say like 80s 90s is like the lean, the Adderall, because
they give it a brand name. They give it a name.
Well, that and these things are much more specific to our generation because Adderall's a newer breakthrough, and so is like lean, which is like codeine and stuff, and it's as well as like weed. I mean, weed obviously has been around for a while, but it's getting a lot stronger now.
Yeah, 98% THC pens. That's insane.
Which is ridiculous. That and vaping. I mean, like vaping is blown up. Like vaping, juuling, whatever whatever you want to call it. That is just a ubiquitous part of our generation now. And the fact that some idiot 17-year-old who is Lil Pump is younger than all of us in this room. We are all older than him. He was born in August of 2000.
I keep forgetting that.
And some dumb 17-year-old who just like mumbles into a mic and makes a bad music video can make millions of dollars off of glorifying lean, cocaine, and like girls. And that's it. I mean, I think that just blows my mind.
Well, I mean, think about it this way. Like when it's always come to like music videos, like modern day music videos, they've always had like the hot girl in there because they want like their target audience is like either 14-year-old boys or like fully grown men.
And that's just that's a part of human nature.
That's just objectification.
Yeah, right.
But so when you're giving a brand name to something, when you're glorifying it, that's always been there. And I was thinking about this the other night when prepping for this episode. And by prepping, I mean sitting there doing absolutely nothing.
Oh my gosh, come on, Darius.
I was thinking like about like the fall of the Western Roman Empire and like the fall of like a pre-modern Western culture. And a lot of the things that happens a lot of cultures is when they begin losing their moral basis or they start questioning their own like moral values, they begin losing what we like to call society. They begin to start losing what's perceived in the mind's eye as what's moral, what's good. America has always liked to believe itself as the moral nation, yet we've done some of the most questionable acts of all history, yet the citizens move on day to day. So when on a scale of microcosm like us, when we begin losing our morality from subjectively viewing, the effects of drugs, weed, what it does to our brains, what it makes us feel, right? Suddenly we stop seeking experiences that are healthy for us. We start seeking experiences that will make us, will augment us.
I would say,
exactly.
I wouldn't tend to agree 100% with that. I don't think that America's just abandoning its morals. I think we all know
it's a stretch. It's a stretch, but I think there's some initial parallels to take from
I do think there's an evolution of our morality, specifically with like taking drugs and promiscuity in our society. And then there's also just the fact that I lost my train of thought. Anyways, I had another thing. It'll come back to me.
Well, I see what you're saying. No, there's always, society always changes. There's, in biology B, my freshman class I'm taking right now, they always say population changes. Not the people. The population changes. And throughout history, when we become more educated about topics and we're able to use our tools as humans and minimize the effects of certain substances, well then it can be deemed safe as long as it's used properly. But there's always those moral discussions, those efficacy discussions.
And that, I think, ties in really well to the drugs thing. I, personally, with marijuana, or weed, cannabis, whatever you want to call it,
The pot.
The pot.
The devil's
pot.
lettuce. The devil's lettuce.
The dankest of the ganja.
The kush.
With weed, I feel like there are definitely, with the clinical trials going on right now, there are definitely medical reasons to take marijuana, and that's perfectly fine. But with anything, just as with alcohol,
Moderation.
with food, with gaming, porn, whatever you want to spend your free time doing,
Whatever you whack your willy to.
Yeah.
Oh God. I mean, with all these things, it's like if you use too much, you will start damaging yourself.
Yeah.
And be it psychologically or physically. So you eat too much, like I did when I was 12, to cope with something bad, like in my case, the divorce. Yeah. I got obese. My health was terrible. And I ended up being 200 pounds at my peak. And then, I realized that wasn't good for me, so I changed that course. But a lot of people, it's harder. And a lot of addiction is genetic. Some people are much more predisposed to addiction than others. And so I think, number one, we need to be more empathetic to addicts. And number two, with things like marijuana, we need to remember that although certain substances may not be physically addicted, they can definitely be psychologically addicted.
Yeah, I think
you won't get physically addicted to weed, but if that is your coping mechanism for trauma,
then you come back to it every single time.
Pavlovian conditioning, the simplest principle of psychology, will make you want to have that when you're feeling bad.
I think one of the funniest things I've ever heard, and I still debate to this day in classroom on a smaller level though, is weed saves you, dude. Weed is everything, bro. It saves everything. I think that's
the kind of person that says that's the kind of person that is mentally dependent on a substance.
Like my grandpa, right? He was an alcoholic. And my uncle also was an alcoholic for a long time. But they figured out it wasn't good for them. Like you were saying, they figured out it wasn't good for them, and it was really altering their life and their family. And my grandpa, he died at the solid age of 92. But he had reconciled with his own addiction. But I think nowadays, when people look at addiction, they kind of throw you in the trash. Kind of like the way they kind of say, "Oh, you're an addict," and then they reinforce the culture of hurting these people, pushing them back into this addiction because they're not getting the help. Especially with the homeless population. Mm-hmm. Homeless populations will experience people will say, "Oh, we want to help you." But then they won't be given the proper tools, the proper counseling, and when they do, themselves. And when they do, when they're given those opportunities to help, they try their best to get out of it. But there's some people who are just they can't. They're just
I think the best way to describe this phenomenon is punishment over rehabilitation.
Yeah,
and that is the fundamental flaw in the American justice system, in our society, in teen society, and everywhere in America.
Great.
It's that when someone has got a problem, instead of rehabilitating them and helping them work towards reintegrating themselves into society, fixing their life, giving them a reason to get up in the morning, giving them a job, being able to take care of themselves, you will put them in prison. You will make them a convicted felon, put them on a list that lets employers know that this is an undesirable, that you should not hire this person. So keep them unemployed, make them go on the streets again, make them have nothing to do with their time but to spend their welfare checks on heroin or crack or meth.
Mental health is like that too. We don't know how to. People with mental health, it's so expensive. People are just like, well,
just get over it.
Yeah,
just get over it.
Yeah, and then they end up being homeless, or we don't know. We're like, oh, no asylums, which I agree that came off weird, but obviously that was not being done properly either. But then we're like, they don't have any support system, and then they end up in jail.
We just conveniently ignore the problem because we don't want to spend the money on it.
Exactly.
And so, I don't know this exact statistic, but I guarantee you over half of the homeless population in San Diego alone
mentally ill.
Is severely mentally ill. And
it's like a quarter of people in prison have a mental illness.
I've talked to a lot of them. A lot of homeless people, that is not prisoners, but back in not Times Square, the square of downtown Knoxville where I used to live, homeless people are all over the place. They sell newspapers and stuff to get by. I look at these people and I talk to them. Some of them are paranoid schizophrenics. Mm-hmm. Others have addictive disorders where they'll eat themselves to the point of obesity, get diabetes, and then have to get amputations because they can't afford to buy insulin to take care of themselves. So a lot of them are on wheelchairs from amputations. A lot of them are severely depressed and will just like sit there just with jars out for money, and they just like kind of somehow manage to stay alive. I don't know. I don't know how you do it.
It's a day-to-day grind, and we look at them when we're crossing the street. You know, they look at you and they pry at you with those eyes. You know, and some people,
maybe on an individual level you don't owe them anything, but as a society, we as a society owe the people who can't take care of themselves the human rights that they deserve.
I agree.
Yeah, it's you know, people will argue. I'm not arguing this, but people argue like, oh, well, they need to get a job, right? Well, they can't.
They can't.
They can't get a job.
Do you think a paranoid schizophrenic or someone else with a severe mental illness can land a stable job?
No.
And
we don't give them the resources to do that anyway.
Exactly.
It all comes down to quantifiable facts that we can endure, because you know there's a large amount of homeless people in the United States,
especially in San Diego,
and a lot of them can be rehabilitated. Don't get me wrong. You give someone an opportunity to clean themselves and get themselves well dressed and groom themselves and give them a place to stay, they can go find a job easily and start supporting themselves given enough time. And then a lot of them can't be put to work because they can't take care of themselves. So we have an obligation to take care of them because they're human beings too. And I mean, I don't understand why we have to stigmatize homeless people, prisoners, convicted felons, when a lot of these people have a really good shot at becoming law-abiding citizens that contribute taxpayer money in the future. If you want to reduce the national debt, rehabilitate your prisoners instead of keeping them in the system.
We make them feel like they have, once you make a mistake, you can't come back from it. Then they're just like, all right, well, I can't come back from it. So then they go through the cycle. You know, they're in prison for a year. They go back out on the streets. They sell drugs. They
do whatever.
Prostitute themselves, something like that. They come back into the system. They're back on the street. And then it's just spending taxpayer money. And two, they have no future. They're just destined to contribute to the drug problem. They're destined to sell themselves. Like, they have no future.
When you give someone no opportunity to reintegrate themselves into society with getting a job, finding a place to stay, when you put them on a second-class citizen list, aka a convicted felony list, you are stripping them of their opportunities to ever become a meaningful member of society ever again. Which is why so many people that are convicted once and put in jail once are much more high likely to do it again. Not because they're bad people. I mean, granted, there are some bad people, but it's also because
I think it's the chance.
You are objectively ruining their lives.
You need to give. Okay, in American society, equality of opportunity is a very big fundamental, and I believe heavily in the equality of opportunity when it comes to a lot of things. Well, I agree with what you're saying there, right? I think the chance needs to be given. If they do not take that chance and they prove they're not worthy of receiving,
then heck, don't waste any more taxpayer money.
I think before we go too deep into this topic, I think we should come reel back redirect. Sorry about that, guys. Redirect back into our main topic, which was
this is more of an eclectic episode.
Yeah. Sorry about that. Teenage drug culture. You know, I've never been to a party in my entire high school career, so I'm not an expert on this. But from what I've heard, things can get out of hand, and I definitely think that there's a culture around just abandoning what it means to be a good citizen and just going all out at a rave or whatever. I don't know. I don't know the terminology.
I mean, if we think about, I always think, before I get, if you get into parties, I feel like in our culture now, you work, and then any of your free time, a lot of people turn to binging. So you binge, whatever it is. Some people, in terms of if we're sticking to people have their free time, they feel like they don't have time for relationships, so you have all the hookup culture where it's meaningless, and a lot of times under the influence, sexual relations, people have STD, higher STD rates, and then you also have everyone numbing themselves because they're stressed. So because
they just don't want to put up with their own daily lives.
Yeah. So any free time is just binge drinking or drugs.
That's such a shame. And I think you're right, and you're onto something here. Where when you spend all of your free time work, no play, and then you have no opportunity to enjoy your life,
it's gonna get pent up.
You've got one day off every 2 weeks or so, and you'll just binge whatever it is that you binge, and to numb the pain of your daily life, just to bear getting back to the grind. That's not the way we should be living, but that is the way American.
You burn out that way because you're not even that's not even a recovery. If you spend your day off doing that,
it's just unhealthy. That's happened to me before. I've I've gone through some weeks where I wasn't feeling very well and I was just getting like depressed.
We've all done
Yeah.
it. We've all done it.
You finally
Overdo
have
it.
that time for yourself, and then you realize I'm not spending this properly.
Yeah, exactly.
You should either be like sleeping or like just resting, but instead you're sitting here like watching like Netflix, playing video games,
working on a hobby.
your phone.
Yeah.
Or you should be working on a hobby.
You should really just
going
be-
out and
yeah.
interacting with people in a healthier way, not like binge drinking or smoking enough weed to like kill brain cells, but like just doing something with your time that makes you feel relaxed and makes you ready to put up with whatever you don't feel like putting up with the next week. But
Yeah.
with American like work culture, I mean, if you look at like, all right, I know like the Netherlands is really controversial with their like whole socialism system, but the way their work weeks go, they work like 30 minus hours a week.
Yeah.
And 40 hours is a minimum here. And so you have like every adult ever like stressed to no avail, and especially if you have a family, I can't even imagine
Right.
how you raise a family with the amount of work we have to do and then still have time to stay sane. And
Well, a lot of
it
them
just
aren't.
destroys people.
Yeah.
And that's why you see bad parents come up. It's not because they're bad people, it's because they just
Super
don't
overwhelmed.
have time to do
Parent. They don't have
one
time to
thing
be a
right.
parent.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think a lot of it comes down to the ever evolving culture of way things are, and
Which is why we've like a lot of teenagers around here have grown up entitled, is because their parents don't have time to teach them the
Monitor,
lessons they
yeah.
need. They're like, okay, well, this will
Here's
shut up
money.
my kid for now, so I can get the work done that I need to do. Let's get him the toy he wants. Let's get him the car he wants. Let's get him the food he wants, so that I can deal with the adult stuff. And so
yeah, and I think one mistake we all make is that when our parents do have time for us, they do have the opportunity to give us these life lessons, we don't listen because we're at this point we think we're all better off or on. I mean, I like to think, I say to my dad all the time, "Oh, I know," when he's telling me stuff, right? I don't know.
Yeah.
What do I know? My dad's been alive for like twice as long, and more than twice as long as I have,
Yeah.
and I'm sitting here like playing video games, and he's trying to help keep me afloat through like community college,
Yeah.
and I'm sitting here not listening, not doing my job, and I think we all, as we're growing up and we're becoming adults, we need to encourage our children whenever we have them, or if we don't have children, we need to encourage the future generations to be more aware that yes, we do live in a time where work is important, but at the same time, you need to realize that maybe spending 13 hours working on an SAT workbook is not the
Yeah.
best use of your day.
Easier.
you look
time.
around and you wonder why so many kids around here are depressed. It's because they work themselves to death.
Yeah,
you
burn
got
out.
these like almost professional grade athletes at this school that are taking 3+ AP classes and are like pressured by their parents to like have to get into Ivy Leagues. You have to get into Ivy League or else you're worthless to me. And like the whole vicarious living through your son or daughter going to Ivy League schools. And then these kids just feel like there's so much pressure on them, and then they have to. And then when they get their free time, they go and they make terrible decisions,
Yeah.
and they go binge and they party and they do whatnot. And
you
then
go-
it's just it's a cycle.
You go to a high school party, and a lot of times you have people, smoking weed. They don't know where it came from.
That's what my biggest concern is over
have people
drugs.
taking prescription drugs that they don't know where it came from.
They don't even
You
know what
buy
it is
from
half the
whoever,
time. It's like, oh, this is a
and you get a synthetic drug, and you can die. Like it's
Oh, yeah,
so
it
easy.
kills you.
You accidentally mix a medication you don't know, you can die. Like there's so many things that you can die. People drinking and driving, all the date rape nowadays because so many people are intoxicated and making decisions they don't feel like doing later on. You have people who are, I can't even imagine, like it's so scary. Like you go to a party and you mix something, you get crossed or you mix something and you wake up and you don't know what happened.
And yeah, exactly. You
It's
can
dangerous.
never
It's
super
know what
dangerous.
someone else has given you unless you're getting it from a doctor.
Exactly.
And I'm not like, oh, drugs are bad. I'm not that guy because, I'm not going to say, but I may or may not have done certain things in the past, right? I'm not going to say drugs are
we
terrible.
ain't judging here. We
Right.
ain't judging here.
I'm not going to say drugs are terrible, but you need to be safe. It's
Yeah,
it's
I
like
agree.
it's like when your mom tells you,
Smart.
okay, I can't keep you from having sex, but you need to be safe. Like
Yeah.
when you do decide to do something that is inherently risky, you need to know what you're doing. You need to trust the person you're getting it from. You need to make sure they know where they got it from. You need to know what it is, how it'll affect you. Do your research, and just do it responsibly.
I think a big stigma has always popped up now that we're all educated about drugs.
Right.
And
I know what I'm doing. I know the risks.
Well, let me finish. And yeah, we all think we're educated, and they always one of the biggest arguments is always, oh well, alcohol this, well alcohol does this and that. And personally, I don't really know a lot, because I'm not 21. I've never smoked a single gram of the Kush.
Single grain.
or I don't even care about the terminology at this point. I think a life altered by a substance where you can't be happy yourself is not a life worth living at all.
Yeah, a lot of people fill the void with drugs. It's like, I know a lot of stoners that are like, dude, if I don't smoke, I feel like I want to die. And it's like, then you have a problem.
Exactly.
Like,
that's an underlying problem, not the weed.
Yes, it's not the weed, it's you. And you're using the weed to cope with yourself. You need to go get professional help. Like, when your life is so bad that you need a substance to get through it,
then you need help because
you need
you're
to
not...
see professional help. And you need to make sure that your social spheres are healthy. You need to hang out with better people. You need to give yourself more time for yourself and less time to your work sometimes. Or maybe you need to work more because you're being a lazy ass. And a lack of fulfillment, which fulfillment almost directly comes from self-improvement and success. When you have none of that, you will feel like crap, and you'll have to fill that void with drugs.
But we have stigma around that too, because we have this idea that, in at least at Sage Creek, you walk around, most people are miserable. And so it's almost like, you say like you need help, but a lot of people, nobody says like, oh, I'm going to go to therapy or something like that, because there is stigma around asking for help. And I think like it's normal for people to go around and be like, I want to kill myself.
Yeah. And it's become an ironic joke, but at the same time, you never know when someone's serious.
Yeah. Well, yeah, but I think a good thing about being an empathetic society, which we talked about, was we're getting to lack, is that when you're sitting next to the weird kid, right, and you really feel like this guy's not having a good day. I know people who claim to be progressives and like, must be inclusive of everyone. These same people, they'll sit there, they'll see the weird kid who's not having a good day, or maybe someone who doesn't like, they'll be quiet. Mm-hmm. They'll just be like they'll look off in the distance, and like the person will they'll be sad, and I've seen that happen before.
Hypocrisy is nothing new, but that's very true. And all right, I'm gonna get personal with you guys. All right, you guys ready for this? So, I people tell you to listen to your haters because they're the most objective critics of you, and it's kind of true. And I look at myself and I realize that a lot of times I think that I'm better than other people, and that's a problem. Yes. And if you've ever talked to me, you probably know this. Like I can have that attitude, and I can think that way sometimes without even, it's subconscious to me. And like I'll think that like some people are above me, and there's no reason for me to interact with them. And recently, like after spring break, I kind of like have just rejuvenated. I don't know, and I feel a lot more positive and in a better state of mind than I have been in a long time. And ever since then, like if I know somebody isn't feeling good, I'll like talk to them and be like, yo, you good? Like, you want to talk? You want to go hang out sometime? Because like, I would want them to do that for me. It makes such
a big difference.
When I feel like crap, the only thing I could ever want is for somebody to just talk to me, like just notice that I'm not feeling good, and ask, and like go out of their way and be like, hey, do you want some help? You want to go talk?
Well, you want to talk? And he's like, hey, dude, what's going on? It's simple as that.
You want to go like grab some food sometime? Like that's. And it's just, it doesn't have to be like awkward. It's just like, oh yeah, just be friends with them. It's like, you don't have to try that hard, and it doesn't have to be like awkward or anything like that. It's just like, you just offer to be a person to them.
And that's what's special about this school. I don't like, we lack a center of like cliquish culture. Sure, we have our groups of people. That's just basic human tribalism. That's just people hanging out with people that like the same things as they do, etc.
Like-minded individuals.
But like, in class, people interact with each other.
Yeah, we're really not a cliquey school.
People, at least in the senior class, I'm sorry, I'm not sure about the junior classes. Yeah, I'm not anyone that knows those classes, but I just speak bad sometimes. But when I walk into class, right, people are happy, or they seem happy, and they're talking to each other, they interact, and there's not really a boundary that needs to be crossed, and definitely people try to make other people feel inclusive, right? And I think one thing, because the thing that's always pissed me off of those safe space signs is that they're like forcing this on you, like, hey, you better be nice. Hey, you better, be like a friendly environment. Well, it's already been a friendly environment. If you're telling people to have a friendly environment, they won't listen to you. They won't.
I think no matter how friendly the environment is, though, people can always get in their own heads, and when you're in your own head, everything's so much worse.
Because I don't try to like not discriminate. It's not the right word, but whether I'm talking to the star soccer player
You don't try to exclude people.
or our freshmen, sure, I make a bunch of freshman jokes, but like, all I want
baseline respect.
I'm like, hey, dude, like, I'm talking to you, like, I'm trying to make a joke. I'll pop a joke here and there. I'm not like, I'm a senior year freshman. There's differences, but like, whatever, dog. It doesn't really matter. We're in high school. We're all just kids.
I always thought that there was a big disconnect between me and like athletic people, and recently I've made like 2 really good friends that are both athletes that I would, I don't know where I would still probably be where I am without them, but like they make my day better and they make my classes more interesting by being there and existing, and that like when we talk, like we've got so much in common, and I didn't ever fathom that like I could have so much in common with someone that was an athlete, or like someone that's played a sport or in that sort of social sphere. And it's just when you get the courage to break down those barriers and to just like see people as people instead of he does this so he is this, instead of classifying people as what they do, just look at who they are. My life has gotten a lot better. I feel like my life has improved dramatically.
And when it comes to social standards, teenagers always have these sets of social standards and rules that they feel they must abide by within their groups. And this is, at school, they break down a little bit when it comes to like outside interactions, or like, people will always act a certain way. People will always be this certain way. There's no definition to change all these people. At the same time, it's just recognizing that culture exists is what's important. It's recognizing that, we are, for as much as we lack spirit, we have a strong community here.
Yeah, we do. We're pretty accepting too. I mean,
I think it's just kids don't care. It's like, if I walk into class and I need to get your math questions from last night, I don't care if you're gay. I'm just gonna walk up and ask you the math questions, dude. I don't care what. Oops.
Oh,
we're gonna add a censor to that. Because,
But I don't care. It's like, I don't care. As long as you don't push it on me, dude, I'm happy to come up and ask you for the math questions. It's not a big deal.
And I think that's a really good aspect about our schools, that we just don't see a lot of, like, when you are in a clear headspace, you don't see people for like what they identify as or what they do. You see a person.
Hey dog, what's up? Like, I'm here for math questions.
What's poppin', B?
What's poppin', B?
Yeah, it's
like, heck yeah.
And I think as much as like the individual is the ultimate minority, I think all of us have to realize that we can't make these, as a single person, we can't make these sweeping motions in society and just expect it to revolve around us. We need to realize that society doesn't care about us. Society is a ultimate foundation of where humanity bases its interactions, right?
But what you can do, surround yourself with good people that care about you.
Yeah, what you can do, however, for all those listening, if we're finally going to get to define a point instead of just talking about multiple subjects, is that when you are in any sort of group, any large group, small group, there is a change to be made. There is someone who needs your help. There's someone that needs your help. Mm-hmm. There's someone that you're going to need someone else's help. And there's nothing wrong with admitting help. I have a very, very bad problem with admitting help to people. I think too much, and I have a problem with admitting that, hey, I need help on this problem.
I think you'd be surprised at how ubiquitous that is to our entire population.
And when it comes down to it, there's always change to be made. It doesn't matter if it's some grandiose change to society like David Hogg and March for Our Lives, harassing people and whatnot.
Or if you just like see someone that's down and you're like, hey, let's go get lunch.
Yeah, walk up, not out, as Mr. Bloomquist likes to put it.
No.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
We will talk about that in the next episode, or maybe not. Either way.
Whatever.
So I think we've covered some really good points today. Obviously, we got off topic a little bit, but I think the commentary was worth it. This is going to be more of an eclectic episode, more than like a focused single topic. So I hope you guys enjoyed. This has been SagePOL episode whatever. I'm Jake Nipper.
I'm Darius Rahmanian.
I'm Isabelle Herbert.
And I appreciate our guest star for coming on today, Isabelle. You've done a great job, and very insightful commentary. I'm glad you brought the talking points you did. And we'll see you guys in the next one.
Thank you. Bye-bye.